So, should I use this? So my name is Ramon, and welcome to Feb's meetup for Ruby. And the first talk isn't really a Ruby thing. It's about automated server deployment and configuration. So there are like different open source applications you can use to like write a script and then you run it and then it'll configure your server, right? I know when I started, I would SSH into a server, do everything like copy and paste and figure it out. And then over time, like 2 years later, you look back and you don't know what to change. Like if I change this config file, will it break? What's going to happen? And it gets better, it gets a little easier every time, but what if you have 10 servers, right? So, it's really to not make you have to study your whole system again, like after 2 years. Now that's if you're the one that wrote it. A lot of teams, maybe there's an app that's 6 years old and then the person that set up the server is long gone and no one wants to touch any of the configuration because they might get fired, right? If they break it. So I'm from Logica, just a little plug. And actually, I just said the why. And really, now, especially with hosts like DigitalOcean, where you can spin up a VM, or even programs like Vagrant that allow you to control VirtualBox, it becomes really easy to spin up a VM and set up a website, but setting it up, like using what I'm going to discuss, is like the final step, I think, in making sure your server is better than if you do everything manually. And finally, you have Git. I think this is the most important part. Like if it's in source control, you can see why certain configuration is there. Like, if there's a certain path you're rewriting in Nginx or in Apache in the config file, like what's that for? There's a client we're working with now, and the config files are like, I don't know, maybe more than 200 lines, and I don't know what's going on, right? And when you ask them, hey, like this asset isn't loading, they're like, just look at the config file and change something, and that's not fun. So the popular options are Puppet and Chef. I think they're both made with Ruby.
Yeah.
No?
Puppet has a DSL on top of Ruby.
Okay.
Chef is more Ruby.
More Ruby-like. And I tried learning Chef. I found it really hard. And so today I'll be talking about Ansible. So this is from Python land. We call them our cousins, right? But you actually don't see any Python. It's really it's YML for everything. Now, if you want to make your custom scripts that need to do certain special things, then yeah, I'd imagine you'd make a Python module. But I'm new to this, so this is a really quick introduction dive. Maybe my 1 day worth of research. And actually it's short because it's surprisingly simple. I'm going to go over a few parts that make up a playbook, okay? A playbook is just a set of instructions that tell Ansible what to do on your server. I'm hoping you can read that, but it really it's. Can the ones at the back read a little bit? Not really. Okay, so I don't know how to make this bigger. So again, I don't expect you to understand really like how to use Ansible, but by just looking at this. But what I want to show you is how little code you actually need to put to get something started. Like the first line creates a user. The first 3 lines, it creates a user. Normally, you probably call this like deploy user. And then after that, that's where you put your web app, right? I'm going to skip. Next are variables, because you need to be able to change certain things depending on if you're on production, if you're in development. You can put passwords and not in plain text, so that's okay. And then at the top of the playbook, you typically put like what hosts you want to target. So let's say I want to target my development group, because you can have more than one, which I'll show you later. And then you can set what roles to play. Like I want to apply the deploy role, and I'll show you later. This is an example of the hosts. Like these are my this is only one development server. What I do is I start a VM via Vagrant, and then I just run a command line that says you use this playbook, and then I want to run the development. I want to target the development group, and you can list multiple hosts also for for production. If you have web1.webapp.com and web2.webapp.com, you can. There's code like that. It can get fancier, but this is just a simple part. And this is how you run it. You run it from the command line. If you're like it says on Ansible.com, if you have like 10 servers, then better to just SSH into one of them, and then you run this on that server so that it just runs in the local network. Or else your computer, which is on the other side of the world, will have to connect like 10 times. And if you have like 100, I think they sell something that you could use, Ansible Tower, I think. But I didn't look into that. Right? So, okay, this is even smaller, but because I'm almost done, right? This is a full playbook that installs Apache. It writes the Apache config file. It restarts it after it writes it. Now, if you run it again and you didn't change anything, it's not going to restart it. And that's it. I wouldn't have been able to show how to do that, I think, with Chef, like in one page like that. So it's of course you can break this up. Like a while ago, I showed you how the hosts look like. You can break them up into different files as things get more complex. But you can keep them all in one file, make it simple. Than anything else. So they have this nice video, which you'll learn, like you'll get a much better idea. I just wanted to tell you that I like this a lot more than Chef, and I understood it a lot better. And this video, it's a video recording of a guy that goes through the whole thing. He sets up his server in like 30 minutes. So that's it. Any questions?
So, if you run the script repeatedly, it's still liable.
Right, so if you run it repeatedly, for example, let me go to something that's a little bigger, so at least you have a chance of seeing it. for example, this file, it's like copy a template. So copy a file you have that you can change in your repository, and then it'll copy it to the server. If it sees that it's the same, it's not going to change it. Other examples. This user, if this user already exists, it's not going to try to create another one. If these packages are already installed, it will install it again. And you can say certain things like, if you installed Nginx, then do this.
Oh.
But yeah, you can do that, and they're called handlers. There's a sample of that, but it's really small here to the bottom. And you trigger it like this. See? So if you wrote the Apache config file, then you notify restart Apache, and then that's the handler restart Apache, which says make sure it restarts. Yeah. So it'll be hard if you don't know Unix, because you'll have to figure out permissions and all of that. So if you're not very familiar with Unix, then if you have a hard time with Ansible, then it's probably because you're not very familiar with Unix. But if you feel like you need some kind of server deployment automation tool, this is the best I've seen so far. And YAML, we use YAML all the time. Any other questions?
I wonder
I
if
hope
you can connect that to auto deployment in, let's say, using Git. So as soon as you push something in a couple of seconds or minutes, that will be executed, and then I'm just wondering.
I've never played around with Git hooks, but I think that's what you would use. Like after, maybe someone else would want to answer, but I'd imagine that you set up like a hook that just runs that.
Yeah, but I would think that running a playbook would take some time. So you probably run it once, set up a trading environment, and just look up the tools. Or let's say you could run it when.
Yeah, you're right. I guess I should be clear when I say deployment. I didn't really mean your web app. So you could still use Capistrano or Mina or Vlad, whatever you use. But this is to set up a server. So after this run, I'll still do a cap deploy, right? But if I change any config file, I'm not going to do it straight anymore, because if I pass it on to the next person, it's like code. If there are no tests, then you pass it on to the next person. Oh, I time out. Then it's like they have to learn everything again. So, yeah.
Yung playbook, same concept ba yun na recipes sa yung playbook sa Ansible? Same concept.
Yeah. If I remember right.
So, parang yung Postgres, pag gusto mag-install ng Postgres, mag-gamit ka ng playbook sa Ansible.
No. It's the thing is, you can do it in 7 or 8 lines. So it's, I guess, what I noticed, for those familiar with Chef, and if you're not, I'm sorry, but what I noticed is Chef, it's like you bring in all the code and then you put it in your repository. That's how it felt like. With here, this repository is just made up of YAML files.
So parang config file lang talaga siya.
Yeah, it's really just a set of configuration files, and then all the Python modules are run on the server. So you need Python on the server, but they all have, like they have Ruby. So.
Python, not Python 3.
No, 2 point something, I forgot, but yeah.
Ano yung platform, may requirement ba yan? Ako na rin, sa Ubuntu lang, mga Debian, kahit basta Unix.
So I guess it's whatever Ansible supports. I haven't looked into others. I know they support Red Hat, so that's CentOS. They also support Debian. I don't know about the others. Because it would be the Python packages that would have to know how to execute certain things. I'm sure there's some difference, right, that they need to know. But your instructions already say, like, I'm using apt, I'm using yum. Unlike Chef, where it keeps it like hidden. Like you just say, I want to install Postgres, and then it figures out, is this server, does it use yum or does it use apt, and then it does the rest. Yeah.
So pati paano yung mga configurations din nung i-install sa loob din ng playbook? So
Like config files?
For example, sa Postgres ulit. So kung kunwari gusto mag-set up ng mga users mo na pati roles nila.
So there is a Postgres module where you can say, create this Postgres user with this encrypted password. Yeah, so, and you can execute shell commands, you can execute, like I guess I struggled a little bit when I was trying, because I wanted to create a deploy user. I log in as Vagrant, and I create a deploy user. Then I was struggling a bit. How do I execute the rest of the commands as the deploy user instead? The answer was just split it into two playbooks. One makes a deploy user, and then I guess it SSHs in again, and then it does everything else.
You can use sudo, then set the user for that case.
Yes, although I don't think Ansible has, like, it knows what the step before it was necessarily. So if in the step before I say switch to a certain user, in the next step is not that. You can tell Ansible, for all these steps I want to use this user, for this certain step I want to be this user. But I don't want to do that for all the rest of the steps. I guess it wasn't clear. They said, when I went to the Ansible chat room in IRC and Freenode, that's what they said you can do. That's one easy option. So just split into two playbooks. Because at the top of the playbook, you can say sudo true, for example, so it'll do everything as a super user. But you can override it per step. I hope did I answer your question?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Ansible.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So how's the experience using Ansible? How's the experience?
It's really
Compared to other...
compared to Chef, it's easy to learn actually.
Sa Ansible, paano kung mag-override ka o sa split node, paano malalaman ng Ansible yung priority mo? Paano niya malalaman kung sino yung parang main?
Here. Actually, I didn't even think about it because it's what's the word? Like, when you look at it, it's obvious. But here, let me show you. Obvious. So these are three tasks, right? And here you see sudo true, and here you see it again, and here you see it again. Now, if everything in this playbook was going to be done by a super user, then I'm gonna show you the whole playbook. Then I could just have added it up here, something like that. I'm not an Ansible master, so if I know you can do that, I don't know exactly where. Like, you can put, variables up here that these tasks know about, but you can. No, never mind. I don't know if you can do that. Anything else? Okay, so if you have any questions, you can approach me. I'm not promising that I'll be able to answer them, but I'll try.
More Google is there. Google